I have several stories from when I worked as a mortuary transport tech. The job was basically transporting the deceased from where they were to where they needed to go. Turns out dead people can have a lot of appointments. One time, though, I had an experience I've never forgotten. I was dropping someone off at the science donation place. This is when you donate your body to science and they take it from there. So I wheeled in the deceased, unlocked the freezer, and did all my stuff I had to do in there. I placed him on the board, got the lift out, and placed him on the shelf. The interesting thing about the freezer was that most everything, once it's processed, was wrapped in this blue tape type thing, and you could definitely tell what was inside. Legs, hands, feet, etc. Kind of interesting to me at the time. Anyway, I shut the freezer and locked it back up and started wheeling the gurney back over to the garage door. The science drop-off and processing area was a big L shape, with the freezer off to the larger long portion. And then you turn the corner and there's desks and filing cabinets and whatnot. I about had a heart attack as I turned the corner, and there is just this guy standing there examining files in the file cabinet. Looked just like you or me, dressed modernly, but out of place for what people normally wear back there. I stopped and said that he'd have to forgive me, but he almost gave me a heart attack. It didn't look like he heard me at all, or even knew I was there. I should mention this was also about 1 a.m., and I'd never seen anyone at the place this late. So I said, "Well, sorry if I startled you or anything," and went on about my finishing up stuff. Got the gurney back in the van, closed and locked the large garage door from the inside. All the while this guy is just standing there, staring at an open file in front of him, not paying any attention to me. I had to use the bathroom, so I told him that's where I'd be going and I'd be right back. Again, no response. I thought maybe he's deaf and couldn't hear me. So I went to the bathroom and came back to the garage, and the guy is gone, but the file cabinet is still open. I didn't know what he went, and I hadn't heard anyone walk down the hallway past the bathroom. I checked and made sure everything I was responsible for was still locked, and it was. So I just announced that I was going to be leaving and locking up to set the alarm. No response. And that's what I did and left. I'm not sure who he was, or is, or what happened. But it was definitely an odd experience, and one I still remember perfectly. I have a few other memories about my time at the job, if anyone else wants to hear. Nothing like what happened above, though. There's a bridge near where I grew up in Bumfuck, Tennessee, that is notorious for screaming at people at night. The screams aren't audible to the houses nearby, and supposedly you have to sit on the actual bridge to hear it at all, though I personally haven't tested it or anything. The common explanation is that it's a bobcat that lives under the bridge, but people have checked with dogs and such and never find signs of any, while some friends and myself had heard this story for years, all growing up, but never tested it. So one night after a few beers, we get up the notion we're going to go test the thing. So 5 drunk guys pile into a beat-up car and we drive down and park on the bridge. This is 1:30 a.m. and it's dead silent out. We sat there for a good 45 minutes and nothing happened. We had the windows down and had started debating whether or not it was all bullshit when the scream happened. We had the lights off, and there was a moon so you could see pretty well, and there for sure wasn't anything outside the car, but it was fucking loud. And it sounded just like a woman with particularly powerful lungs having her skin ripped off right outside the window on the rear passenger side that faced off the edge of the bridge. Now I've heard bobcats in heat while hunting, and they do like a scream, scream, scream kind of thing. It's hard to describe, but they do it in little repeating bursts. This was a good 3-4-second extended scream at incredible volume. We tore out of there like a demon was chasing us. A couple of miles down the road we finally stopped and actually processed what happened. My adrenaline was going so badly, and I was so scared I was just shaking uncontrollably. One of my friends had actually pissed himself, which I'd never seen anyone actually do. One friend immediately left the car and vomited. To give what I think was a good frame of reference to how actually terrifying this was, my friend whose car we were in wasn't even mad at the friend that pissed all over his seat. It was insane. To this day, I have no explanation for it. I used to work as a nursing assistant in assisted living communities. Usually when a resident started to need hospice, they were transferred out to a higher level of care, so I didn't see death for a long time. When I first started, my favorite resident, let's call her Marilyn, would play Scrabble with me. She was completely alert and oriented. Sometimes she likes to sit quietly with an iPod shuffle clipped onto her vest and these huge headphones. She loved music. Slowly she started to decline. I would help her get ready for bed and she would get upset when she forgot how to do something. The only thing that calmed her down was playing music off my phone. She liked Frank Sinatra and the Beatles. Her independent ability declined rapidly and soon she was bedridden. Still, loved listening to music. This was during COVID, and her quality of life was diminishing so quickly that we didn't transfer her out. She had an apartment at the facility with all her belongings where she was comfortable. By the end, her dementia had progressed to the point that she couldn't remember how to swallow. Marilyn passed away with me, the head nurse and her family at her bedside in her apartment, Unit 202. I did her post-mortem care afterwards, styled her hair how she liked to wear it, even clipped her little iPod onto her shirt. A few days after she died, a woman in 203, her neighbor, kept wandering into the lobby during night shift, always at 3 a.m. She complained of loud music coming from Unit 202. That apartment was vacant, just full of Marilyn's belongings. She said the music was so loud it was deafening. Whenever the night shift worker went to check, he didn't hear anything. Not really creepy, more sad. I miss Marilyn. My good friend shared this story with me, and I've never been able to shake it or retell it as well as him. It's a long story, so I'll just tell you the first part, which I find the scariest. He's about 40 and divorced. Back when he was married with a 1-year-old daughter, he and his wife bought a house and moved in. It was apparently an old house that needed some fixing up, but they got a good deal and were ready for the work. After a week or so there, he notices a life-sized doll in the corner of the nursery where his daughter sleeps. It creeps him out because he's a normal human being, so he turns it around to face the corner so it stops staring at him. After putting the kid to bed, he goes downstairs and asks his wife about it. "Where did we get that doll?" She looks at him and says, "I don't remember. I assume someone gave it to you for our daughter and we moved it here." He's a little weirded out because he didn't remember moving the doll and wonders if maybe it was in the house when they moved in and he didn't notice it. The next morning he goes to get the kid out of her crib and notices something. The doll isn't facing the corner anymore. It's looking at him again. I'm getting shivers already just remembering him tell me this. That's enough to creep anyone out, so he throws it in the closet and shuts the door. That night he has an argument with his wife. I don't remember what it was about and it's not really relevant, but the point is they were getting into it a bit, loud and focused enough that they didn't notice their daughter crying upstairs. At a lull in the argument, his wife hears her and says she's going to go check on her, but he just tells her she'll be fine, let's hash this out. Another minute goes by, and suddenly he realizes he's practically having to shout over the noise of his daughter screaming from her room. It sounds different. It's not a normal cry. He glances at his wife and quickly starts up the stairs. What he saw when he opened the door literally makes my eyes water with fear when I think about it. The closet door is open. The life-sized doll is sitting next to the crib, motionless, and its arms are reaching through the bars towards his daughter, just stiff and motionless, like it was caught in the act before returning to a doll state. Needless to say, the doll was thrown out and I believe even burned. There's no explanation for that other than something seriously demonic. The story of that house goes on for much longer, but that's all I have time to write at the moment. When I was 16, I woke up on a Wednesday night about 2 a.m. and there was a ghostly figure walking up the middle of my bedroom floor. I froze and reached for the light on my bedside locker, but it wouldn't switch on. So as a coping mechanism, I decided the only thing I could do was to hide under the duvet and hope it all goes away. After about 10 minutes, I peek out and notice the light is now on. The room is empty and I managed not to urinate on the sheets, which is always a good thing. The female that was in my room was dressed in black, and I could make the outline of her face out. She spoke softly, saying, "Don't mind me." That didn't settle me in any way. In fact, I think it made it worse. So fast forward to that Saturday night. I had friends over and I had a new phone, which at the time was pretty cool because it had a camera on it. We were taking pictures and messing about. 2 days later, I noticed in one of the photos that this lady was sitting at a chair at my kitchen table right behind where my friend was sitting. I freaked out. It was her, and I thought I was losing my mind. For about a week after this, I noticed strange things in the house, like the cupboards in the kitchen all being open when I walked into it, the front door being unlocked when I knew I locked it. I had terrible nightmares for this week too. I finally bottled it and told my parents what was happening. Once I had told my parents everything and showed them the photo, they took me to our parish priest, who to my surprise immediately came to our house with us. He opened the front and back door and said prayers as he blessed the house and said a few words. An interesting thing he said was about the area I live in. He said he has seen so many strange and frightening things on the hill which he can't speak about, but claimed what happened to me was minor compared to what others had endured. I asked more questions until he finally told me what has been happening and why. We live on a mountainside above a small town which has become very built up with houses and activity. About 3 miles from this group of houses, there is a castle which is around 3,000 years old, which is notorious for its hauntings and cruel history. I was informed that anyone killed in the castle would have been buried over the land where my house is, and there is a lot of activity and a lot of lost souls in the area. The hill I live on is called the Bridal Lonan, which is based in Warrenpoint, County Down, Northern Ireland. The castle is called Narrow Water Castle. Feel free to look into the history of the castle and as to why the hill has its name. From the stories I have heard, the hill is called the Bridal Lonan because whilst trying to get away on horseback from the castle with his new bride, a knight had his head severed off, and the bride was able to still guide the horse along the hills alone, hence the Bridal Lonan. Hope you enjoyed this. I have had other encounters in this time, but I'll keep them for another time. Well, when I was 11, I transferred school districts and ended up in a middle school. I knew no one at first, but I slowly grew into a small group of friends that were loner types like myself. One of my friends, I'll call her Anna, was quiet and low-key. At this point, I didn't know my new friends very well and had only been at their homes a couple times to visit. Anna's family was very warm and welcoming. They were intelligent and easygoing, just like her. One morning I walked into the common area of our school with the plan of hanging out with my friends a little before classes started. Everything seemed completely normal. Absolutely no one was acting out of character. One friend was doodling in her sketchbook, as was her thing, and the other 3, Anna included, were chatting and laughing about some random topic. When I think back on it, the memory of me walking up to Anna is always in slow motion. I remember the edges of my vision fading out a bit, leaving me with just a tunnel focused on her face. As I was taking my final steps to stand next to her, I could physically feel an image developing in my brain. If you've ever seen ice crystallizing on a window pane, that's what was happening in my brain. It's as if my thoughts had all been liquid, but at this moment, a single thought was solidifying, become real. I can still feel that same sensation today. The image had sharp edges. I could feel the object in my head, like it was trying to root itself in there. I came to a stop in front of Anna. Before she could even say hi to me, I realized what the image was of: a chandelier. Without a second to pause, I looked directly at her and blurted out, "Why am I seeing a chandelier when I look at you?" Anna kinda froze in mid-movement and quickly snapped at me, "How do you know that?" I was confused. "Know what?" She paused and mellowed for a moment. Then she simply said to me, "My uncle killed himself last night. He hung himself from the chandelier in the dining room." I don't remember saying much more after that. I took what she told me, and she took what I told her, and that was that. Whenever people in my life today bring up supernatural things, I rarely ever mention it. I have no answer for it, and I have no intention of honing my skills, or even entertaining that thought process like some people suggest. I was diagnosed with bipolar 1 at 20, and I am prone to psychosis during my episodes. I've had people try to convince me that my hallucinations are dead people trying to communicate, or that my delusions have foundations in the supernatural. I've had far too many people tell me to quit my meds because what I have is a gift. Nowadays, when the subject is brought up, I just tell people maybe in another life, but for now I have to live this one. When I was 11 and my younger brother Ryan was 7, our parents divorced, and we went to live with my grandparents on a farm in Iowa. My brother and I loved it there and had adjusted well. I was the class clown and my brother and I had a blast exploring the farm and spending time with our friends. One day, out of the blue, Mom came home with this guy James. James lived with his daughter Sharon, a couple of states away in Wyoming. Mom told us he was going to be our new dad and we're going to move into his house in Wyoming. We didn't even know she was dating anyone. Within a week, she had pulled us from school and we were living in James's house with his daughter Sharon, who was 17. James also had a 15-year-old son, Matt, who had ran away from home. I got Matt's room in the basement. My brother was in the basement room across from me while everyone else was upstairs. When Sharon took us to our new bedrooms in the basement, the entrance room at the basement landing had all these naked dolls piled up in a corner. My brother Ryan and I were like, what the crap are these? Sharon said her brother Matt used to take her dolls and torture them. They were all naked with some arm or legs missing, even some had burn marks on them. Being in 6th grade, I was like, well, I guess it is kind of like blowing up army men with firecrackers, trying to justify it in my 11-year-old mind. Sharon then took us to our rooms. It was a pretty small basement with only 2 bedrooms with cold concrete floors. It was the 80s, so the house was not well insulated, and I always remember it being cold in the basement. There was a massive metal door that connected the garage to the basement, so you could exit the basement by the garage stairs, or the stairs from upstairs. The basement garage door was very hard to push open and shut, as they had put a big insulation strip around and under the door to keep the cold air out. Being 11, and weighing 100 pounds soaking wet, I had to lay my shoulder into it to get it open and shut, but it was a quick way out of the house. We often went this way so we didn't have to go upstairs where Mom, James, and Sharon would be. Ryan and I spent as much time outside of that house as we could, either exploring the barn James had on his property or walking across the road was a huge open pasture next to the property. My brother Ryan and I were pretty innocent about many things. We were pretty silly and everything was funny to us, or we did stupid things like the kids in the movie Stand By Me, if you have seen that. James, our new dad, was the opposite, a disciplinarian. We had to eat every piece of food on our plates, or sit there for hours at the table if we didn't. For example, they made us eat summer sausage they had made for almost every meal for like a month straight. I think they were trying to get rid of it as they had made too much. We hated it, but James and my mom didn't really care about that. It makes me want to gag writing about it after all these years. Well, after getting settled into our new rooms in the basement, my brother and I noticed 2 things. One was Ryan's room was bare with nothing but a bed. My room, or should I say Matt's room, was as exactly as he had left it. He had his posters on the wall, homework sitting out, had a hunting knife we found in the desk. Even his clothes were still in the closet. It is like he was still living there. From day 1, my brother did not leave my side. He slept on the rug beside my bed. I was kind of a butthead, as I didn't let him sleep in my bed with me because, well, I was 11, and he was my brother. So that was not have been cool, but I was scared to sleep by myself in that room, and thankful my brother slept with me in the same room. After about a day or 2 of living there, my brother and I started exploring Matt's room. He had a locked box that we had found that we couldn't find the key for. We were searching everywhere we could to find the key. We pulled out the bed and found that Matt had cut a hole in the back of the bed's headboard. I thought for sure the key would be in there, but instead we found these life-size cardboard cutouts of naked women. Matt had meticulously cut out these centerfolds. It was the 80 from magazines and glued them on these cardboard pieces that matched the images. There were several naked cardboard women that he must have taken out and played house with, or whatever he would do with them. We found other things that young kids shouldn't see in that room and basement. Some really jacked up books on bondage and other stuff. We had no idea what any of it was about at that age. We never did find the key to the box either. My brother Ryan and I were scared that one would get caught with these things, and we were too afraid to tell anyone because nobody in that house liked us, so we hid them back in the headboard of that bed. At night, I would go to bed, and sometimes I would dream about naked women in cardboard shapes coming after me. As I hadn't hit puberty, these were bad dreams, not good ones. About a month into living at the house, everyone was fighting. Mom and James weren't getting along. Sharon hated my brother and I. James hated us as well. My brother was super stubborn, especially about the food thing, when James would make him sit there for hours at the dinner table, until bedtime. We felt like we had won a victory over James because Ryan would hold out so long without eating the sausage. But then James found our weak spot. He found out Ryan and I slept in the same room at night, and started making Ryan sleep in his own bedroom. Once we were separated into sleeping by ourselves, I felt scared and lonely. Ryan was worse. He had nightmares about Matt coming to kill him. One night Ryan was screaming and I ran in and found him covered in blood. He said Matt had tried to kill him. My mom said he had a bloody nose while he was dreaming. He got a lot of bloody noses that winter as the air was cold and dry in the basement. My brother and I found a way around being split up though. After James made sure Ryan was in his bed and not in my bedroom, Ryan would sneak into my room and sleep. He would go back to his bedroom in the morning before anyone got up. There were lots of really jacked up things that happened, but there is one thing that bothers me to this day, and why I'm writing this. I was playing by myself on the garage steps with my army men. I had opened the big heavy metal door and was just playing with the army men. I was the only one in the house for whatever reason. For some reason I grabbed a couple of the dolls laying around the corner, and at first I just made them part of my army war, but then I made them kiss. I'm not sure why I did that. Like I said, I wasn't really into girls or hit puberty yet. Alls I know is the giant metal door behind me slammed shut. The door that I could barely budge just slammed shut 2 feet behind me. I knew I was the only person there, and I knew there was no way that door would shut by itself. I was so scared I just acted like I was still playing army men for about 5 seconds, then ran up the garage stairs as fast as I could, thinking any moment something was going to grab me before I made it out of the house. I stayed outside until my mom came home. I never told her what happened until later on in life. Not too long after that, my mom and James split up and my brother and I moved back with my grandparents. That is when my mom told me some other little things, like Matt had actually committed suicide and not run away. She had to explain what suicide was to me. He had hanged himself in the barn, my brother, and I played in all the time. Thanks for the heads up after the fact, Mom. I believe in good and evil in this world. That house and environment was evil. I have never seen any ghosts or aliens or anything like that, but that door slamming shut by itself happened. It wasn't air movement in the house or pressure. Something evil closed it. I have lived in the same house for my entire life in the deep country of North Carolina. It's packed full of dense forest and stories as old as the trees themselves. The house is a small 3-bedroom home made of brick, wood, and fond memories. All but this one. At the time, me and my brother shared a room with a window facing the backyard, and the forest about 60 yards back. I was 6-7 and my brother was 9-10. Late at night when I couldn't sleep or didn't want to, I would stare out the windows into the woods and up at the stars. I did this a lot. I really loved the calm of the forest at night. Until one of these days I saw something. It had to be about 1-2 a.m. There was a figure at the edge of the woods facing my house. A man with a long beard and a green jacket was just sitting on a log facing my house. As a kid, I had no idea what to feel about it. I wouldn't say I was scared, more confused. I tried to get my brother awake and to look, but he just wouldn't move. I eventually stopped looking out the window after about 20 minutes and went to sleep. The next day, I looked outside and saw nothing. Later, I thought he would show up again that same night, but he didn't. I asked my brother if he ever saw anything. He said he didn't, so I figured maybe it was my imagination. Unfortunately, no. Over the course of a year, I would see the man 1-2 times a month. I wasn't always looking for him, so maybe he was there more often. He would never leave the edge of the woods and would rarely move. The only thing that changed about him was his ratty, dirty clothes. During this time, I asked some of the neighbor kids about it. A few of them had said they saw something similar. For some reason, I wasn't worried about telling my parents. I never thought I was in danger. I was just fascinated with this man. Eventually, I did stop seeing this man. Maybe he left or died somewhere deep in the woods. About a year after I stooped seeing the man, my sister, and my brother were exploring the woods. About a 20-minute walk away is a pond and an old abandoned 2-story house. Like any rational kids, we decided we needed to go inside of it. The house was decrepit and full of dust. The first room we walked into was a living room. What we saw was newspaper everywhere from 2004, empty food cans and wrappers, a pile of deer bones, and for some damn reason a flip book type blueprint of the local high school. We look at this, and we are immediately unsettled, and my brother and I want to book it, but my sister wants to look around more. In the kitchen is an old bike and 2 walls fully covered in dirt dauber, nests a type of hornet species. At this point, he decided to nope out of the whole house, and we run away. Thinking back on it now, it's likely that man was homeless and possibly mentally unwell and squatting in that house. After that, I never saw or hear anything about that man, but I still to this day keep curtains on my windows out of paranoia.